Ready for a deep dive?
Always.
This time we're tackling the courage to be disliked.
Oh, that's a good one.
I know, right? This book really flips the script on how we think about happiness.
Yeah, it's like a total reframing.
Exactly.
Like, you know, forget everything you thought you knew.
Haha, pretty much.
Well, maybe not everything, but
But it definitely challenges some big assumptions.
for sure.
Like, right off the bat, it throws this question at you.
Okay, hit me.
What if I told you trauma doesn't exist?
Whoa, okay, that's a bold statement.
Right.
And probably not what people expect from a book about happiness.
Nope, not at all. But that's what makes this deep dive so interesting.
Definitely. And to understand that no trauma thing, you got to get Adler's whole perspective.
Yeah, he's coming from a totally different angle than, say, Freud.
Exactly. Freud was all about digging into your past.
Right, your childhood, all that stuff.
Yeah, the idea being that past experiences, especially negative ones, shape who you are today.
Etiology.
Big word. Uh-huh. Yeah, but it basically means your past is the cause of your present.
Okay, I get it.
But Adler, he flips that on its head.
So he's not about the past.
He's more about your goals, like where you're aiming right now.
So less about why am I messed up and more about what do I want?
Exactly. It's called teleology. The idea is that your purpose, your goals, they pull you forward more than your past pushes you.
Okay, so it's less about being a victim of circumstance and more about,
Taking control.
yeah, taking control, making choices.
Even if those choices seem self-defeating on the surface.
Okay, I'm thinking of that friend we all have, the one who's always got an excuse for why they can't do something.
Oh yeah, I know the type.
Maybe they're afraid to leave the house or always canceling plans.
Right, right.
Freud might say, there's some trauma there, something from their past making them this way.
But Adler would ask, what's their goal in staying inside? What are they getting out of this behavior?
So it's like, even if it seems negative, there's a purpose behind it.
Sure.
It's kind of like they're choosing this, even if it doesn't seem like a good choice.
Yeah, and it's not always conscious, right?
Right.
But there's a payoff,
Yeah.
even if it's just avoiding something scary.
Which brings us back to that whole trauma doesn't exist thing.
Ooh, yeah, let's unpack that.
Because when I first read that, I was like, hold up, what?
It's definitely a head-scratcher.
Because, like, bad stuff does happen to people, right?
Oh, absolutely. The book isn't denying that.
Okay, good, because that would be crazy.
Uh-huh, right.
So what's the deal with this no trauma thing, then?
It's about how we interpret those experiences.
Yeah.
Adler believed we have way more power than we realize to choose how we see things.
Okay, so it's not the event itself, but the meaning we give it.
Exactly. And that meaning can change over time, too.
Yeah, that's so true. Like, something that felt devastating at the time.
Later on, you're like, huh, maybe that wasn't so bad after all.
Or even like, wow, that experience actually made me stronger.
Right.
So if trauma doesn't have this pre-programmed power over us, what does that mean for people who are struggling?
It means there's hope.
Okay, I like that.
It's not about erasing the past.
More like rewriting it,
Yeah. Or at least choosing to see it differently.
like reframing it so it doesn't hold you back anymore.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that you have agency, the ability to shape your own narrative.
That's powerful stuff.
It is.
And this whole idea of how we interpret things, it makes me think about the book's take on feelings of inferiority.
Ah, yes. Another area where it really challenges conventional thinking.
Because we're often told to just get over those feelings, like there's some kind of weakness.
Right, like just be more confident.
But the book is saying something totally different.
Yeah, it's arguing that those feelings of not being good enough, not being smart enough, all those not enoughs,
Yeah.
they're not objective truths.
So it's not that we're actually lacking something.
It's more about the meaning we layer on top of the facts.
Okay, example time. I'm objectively shorter than, like, LeBron James.
Uh-huh. Okay, point taken.
That's a fact. But if
Yeah.
I turn that into I'm worthless because I'm not tall, that's a whole other story I'm creating in my head.
Exactly. And that story is where things get tricky.
It's like those optical illusions where you can see two different images depending on how you look at it.
Oh, I love that analogy.
The image itself doesn't change, but our perception of it does.
And that's what the book is saying about feelings of inferiority.
They're not necessarily wrong, but we often misinterpret them.
And then we use those misinterpretations as excuses.
Ooh, tell me more about that.
Well, the book gives this great example of a student who was terrified of blushing in public.
Okay, relatable.
Right. On the surface, it seemed like her goal was to stop blushing.
Makes sense.
But as the philosopher in the book digs deeper, he finds out her real goal was to confess her feelings to someone she liked.
So the blushing was just an excuse.
Exactly. It was a way to avoid the risk of rejection.
Wow, so her feeling of inferiority wasn't about the blushing itself, but about the fear underneath. And I think we all do that to some extent, right? Use feelings as a shield.
All the time. It's easier to feel bad about ourselves than to risk failing or being judged.
It's so true.
It's like this built-in defense mechanism.
If the book is saying we don't have to live like that.
Nope. It's all about reframing those feelings,
Yeah.
understanding their true purpose.
And that's where the whole life is not a competition thing comes in, right?
Yes, that's a huge part of Adlerian psychology. We don't need to constantly measure ourselves against other people.
Which is like the opposite of what we're told all the time.
Right. Social media especially is all about comparison.
Totally.
But Adler says a healthy sense of inferiority comes from comparing yourself to your ideal self.
So not trying to be better than everyone else.
Exactly. It's about being the best you that you can be.
Okay, that's a much better way to think about it.
It's more freeing, right?
Totally. It's like we're all running our own race.
And the only competition is with ourselves.
I love that.
Me too. It
And
takes the pressure off.
For sure. But speaking of pressure, the book has some interesting things to say about praise.
Oh yeah, that's another one that might surprise people.
Because, like, we're told to praise kids all the time.
Good job. You're so smart.
Yeah. Encouragement and all that.
But the book actually suggests saying thank you instead,
Even with kids.
especially with kids, because praise can create this weird power dynamic.
I never thought about it that way.
It puts the praiser in a superior position, even if it's not intentional.
So it's like even though we're trying to be positive, it can reinforce those negative feelings of inferiority.
Exactly. It can make the recipient feel judged and even, well, inferior.
Which is the opposite of what we want.
Right.
Okay, so thank you instead of good job.
Exactly. It's about acknowledging contribution, not judging performance.
So it's like, thank you for helping with the dishes instead of you did such a great job with the dishes.
Yes, it's about appreciating the effort, not evaluating the outcome.
Okay, I'm starting to get it.
It's subtle, but it makes a big difference.
And the book even has this anecdote from the philosopher's own life about his relationship with his dad.
Oh, yeah, that's a powerful story.
They weren't very close, right?
Yeah, their connection was strained for years.
But then the philosopher learns about Adler, and he changes his approach.
Instead of trying to win his dad's approval, he just starts saying, thank you.
For anything.
Even small things, like thanks for making dinner or thanks for taking out the trash.
And that changed everything.
Well, not overnight.
But things shifted.
They did. The father, who wasn't known for being affectionate, started to soften.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's like acknowledging someone's contribution, even without all the flowery praise, allows them to feel seen and appreciated in a way that can be really powerful.
And that opened the door for a deeper connection.
It did. It's a beautiful example of how a small change in perspective can have a ripple effect on our relationships.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
It does. And it makes you wonder how we might be able to apply this in our own lives. What if a little bit of gratitude could change our relationships too?
Yeah, that's something to ponder.
It is. It's a powerful idea.
It's amazing how powerful gratitude can be.
It really is.
Like, just saying thank you can shift a whole dynamic.
Yeah, it's like this secret weapon for connection.
And it makes you think, are we so focused on getting praise that we're missing out on the power of giving thanks?
It's easy to get caught up in that, especially in today's world, you know?
Totally. Like, everyone's trying to be the best, get the most likes, all that.
And it's exhausting.
It is. But this book, it offers a different path.
Yeah, a path that doesn't rely on external validation.
That's where the whole courage to be disliked thing comes in, right?
Exactly.
When I first saw the title, I was like, who wants to be disliked?
Right.
But it's not about being a jerk or anything.
No, not at all.
It's more about recognizing that you can't please everyone.
And that's okay.
Yeah, like trying to be liked by everyone is a recipe for unhappiness.
Totally. You end up living someone else's life.
And losing yourself in the process.
Exactly. The book is saying, embrace your true self, even if it means some people won't like it.
Which is scary.
It is, but it's also liberating.
Because when you stop trying to control how others see you,
You're free to just be you.
yeah. And that's when you attract the people who truly connect with who you are.
It's like the more authentic you are, the more genuine your relationships become.
It's kind of paradoxical.
It is. But it makes sense when you think about it.
Because when you're trying too hard to fit in, you end up standing out in all the wrong ways.
Yeah, it's like you're wearing a mask, and people can sense that.
But when you take off the mask and just be yourself,
That's when you shine.
and this idea of being true to yourself, It ties into another concept from the book, separating tasks.
Oh, that's a big one.
I know, it sounds kind of technical.
It does, but it's actually really simple and powerful.
Okay, break it down for me.
It's about recognizing that you are only responsible for your own life and choices.
So not trying to control other people,
Exactly. You can't control how other people think, feel, or act.
which is hard because we often try to.
We do, especially with people we're close to.
Like, I might want my partner to be more tidy or my friend to be less flaky.
But those are their tasks, not yours.
Okay, so it's about setting boundaries.
Yes.
Yeah.
Focusing on what you can control, which is your own thoughts, feelings, and behaviors.
So I can control how I respond to my partner's messiness, but I can't control the messiness itself.
Exactly.
This makes me think about the story of the philosopher and his dad again.
Oh, how so?
Well, he couldn't change his dad's behavior, but he could change his own way of relating to his dad.
Yeah, instead of trying to win his dad's approval, he simply chose to express gratitude.
And that created a shift.
It did. It's a beautiful example of how separating tasks can lead to more fulfilling relationships.
It's not about giving up on people, but about recognizing that they have their own journeys.
And sometimes those journeys take us in different directions.
It's about respecting those differences, even if we don't always understand them.
Exactly. And I think this idea can be applied to so many areas of our lives, not just family relationships.
Totally, like with friends, coworkers, even with society as a whole.
It's about taking responsibility for our own happiness without expecting others to make us happy.
Which brings us back to that courage to be disliked thing.
Full circle.
It takes courage to set those boundaries, to let go of expectations, to embrace our true selves.
It does, but the rewards are worth it.
Because ultimately, freedom comes from living in alignment with our own values, not trying to live up to someone else's.
Beautifully said.
And this whole idea of freedom, it makes me think of another great analogy from the book, life as a dance.
Oh, I love that one.
It's so much better than thinking of life as a straight line.
Right. Because life is messy, it's unpredictable, it's full of twists and turns.
And sometimes you got to improvise.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where the joy comes in.
It's about being present in each moment, enjoying the music, even when it's not the song you expected.
And if you don't like the song, change it.
Ha ha ha! Exactly. You're the one leading the dance.
Take ownership of the experience.
Don't just follow someone else's steps.
And that brings us to another really interesting concept from the book. The idea that, quote, life in general has no meaning.
Okay, wait, hold up. No meaning at all. That's kind of depressing.
It might sound that way at first, but it's actually really empowering once you understand what Adler is saying.
Okay, I'm listening.
He's not saying that life is pointless or meaningless.
Cute. Good.
What he's saying is that life doesn't come with a prepackaged purpose.
So no grand plan.
Nope. No universal script that we're all supposed to follow.
So we're not born with a predetermined destiny.
Not according to Adler. He believed that we create meaning through our actions and interactions with others.
So the meaning isn't something we find.
It's something we make.
Okay, that's a game changer.
It is. It means we have the power to choose what our lives mean.
It's not about finding the answer, it's about living the question.
Exactly. And that brings us to another important concept, the life lie.
That sounds ominous.
It can be, but it's also a really helpful concept for understanding why we sometimes get stuck.
Okay, so what exactly is a life lie?
It's a story we tell ourselves about who we are and why we do the things we do.
And this story isn't always true.
Often, it's a way of protecting ourselves from discomfort or justifying our current circumstances.
So it's like we create these narratives to explain why we're not living the life we really want.
Exactly. It's a way of avoiding responsibility or shielding ourselves from the fear of change.
Like someone who complains about their job but never looks for a new one.
Yeah. They might tell themselves they're not qualified or it's too late to start over.
But those are just excuses, right?
They're life lies, stories we tell ourselves to stay stuck.
And these life lies can show up in any area of our lives, right?
Absolutely. Relationships, career, health.
We might tell ourselves we're not good enough, or not worthy, or not capable.
But those are just stories, and we have the power to change them.
So how do we start untangling these life lies?
It starts with awareness, paying attention to those narratives and asking ourselves if they're really serving us.
Are they helping us grow, or are they keeping us stuck?
It's about recognizing that we have a choice. We can keep clinging to those life lies, or we can choose to write new stories.
Stories that empower us, inspire us, and help us create the lives we truly want.
Exactly. It's about embracing the courage to challenge those limiting beliefs and step into our full potential.
And maybe in the process, discover a whole world of possibilities we never even knew existed.
That's the beauty of it. When we let go of the life lies, we open ourselves up to something so much bigger and brighter.
It's like we have the power to rewrite our own destinies.
We do. It's just that sometimes we forget.
Yeah, we get so caught up in the old story that we forget we can change the narrative.
Exactly. And this whole idea of letting go of the life lies, it ties in beautifully with the life as a series of moments thing we talked about earlier.
Oh, right, like focusing on the present chapter instead of dwelling on the past or stressing about the future.
Yes. Adler believed we can only truly live in the here and now.
Makes sense. I mean, that's all we really have, right? This moment.
It is. Our lives exist in these moments, not in some abstract past or future.
It's like that saying, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift. That's why it's called the present.
I love that. And that's where the analogy of the guiding star can be so helpful.
Oh, yeah, the guiding star. What was that all about again?
It's like this metaphor for our ultimate goal, our deepest values, the kind of life we want to be living.
Okay, so like a compass.
Exactly. It helps us make choices in the present that are aligned with that vision,
Even when things feel chaotic or uncertain.
especially then. It's like having a beacon to guide us through the fog.
So instead of getting lost in the day-to-day, we can use the guiding star to stay focused on what truly matters.
Precisely. It helps us prioritize, make decisions that are in line with our values.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we actually find our guiding star?
It's not so much about finding it as it is about choosing it. What are your deepest values? What kind of impact do you want to make on the world?
Another big question.
They are, but they're worth pondering.
For sure.
And once you have a sense of your guiding star, you can start making choices that move you closer to it.
So every decision becomes like a step towards that star.
Exactly. And even when you stumble or take a detour, you can always reorient yourself. Use that star to get back on track.
It's like having a built-in GPS for life.
Uh-huh. I like that. And I think this is especially important in today's world where there's so many distractions.
Oh, yeah. It's so easy to get caught up in the busyness, the to-do lists, the constant stream of information.
And lose sight of what really matters.
Exactly. But the guiding star helps us stay anchored, reminds us why we're doing what we're doing.
It's a source of motivation, inspiration, and purpose.
It's like a reminder that we're not just going through the motions, we're actually creating something meaningful.
Exactly.
Mm.
And that meaning, it doesn't have to come from some big external achievement.
It can come from the everyday choices we make.
Absolutely. From how we treat others, how we spend our time, how we show up in the world.
So it's not about the destination, it's about the journey.
Yes. And the guiding star helps us make sure that journey is one worth taking.
This is making me think about all those people who are always searching for the meaning of life.
Oh yeah, the big existential questions.
But maybe the meaning isn't something we find, but something we create through our actions and choices.
Exactly. Adler believed that meaning comes from three main sources: self-acceptance, confidence in others, and contribution to the community.
Those are powerful pillars.
They are. When we accept ourselves fully, trust others, and contribute to something bigger than ourselves.
That's when we find a sense of purpose and belonging.
Yes, and that's what makes life worth living.
Wow, this has been such an insightful conversation.
It has. We've covered so much ground.
We have, from the no trauma thing to the guiding star and everything in between.
And it all comes back to that central theme: the courage to be disliked,
The courage to be ourselves, even when it's hard.
even when it means going against the grain, challenging expectations.
Because ultimately, true happiness comes from living in alignment with our own values, not trying to please everyone else.
Exactly. It's about finding the courage to dance to the music of our own hearts.
To all our listeners out there, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the courage to be disliked.
We hope you found it as thought-provoking and inspiring as we have.
And remember, you have the power to create a life that is both meaningful and joyful, a life that truly reflects who you are.
So go out there and shine your light.